I'm Michaela, and this is my partner, Sammy.
Sammy, hi.
And we are the founding and co-owners of Project Gnosis GmbH. We are here interviewing over Skype, or rather answering the questions that you've presented to us over Skype, and hopefully this will be good enough, and if not, you feel free to let us know. So we'll just get right into it. I love your questions, so thank you. What inspired us to launch this project? So I guess I'll start, and then Sammy can sort of add his part. So first of all, back in 2012, I had an idea for an app that I wanted my sons to develop for me, and I figured that this would be no problem for them because, of course, they were always on their devices, and I felt like the gulf between us started to get bigger and bigger, and somehow with my lack of tech knowledge and their apparently tech whizzes, I thought we could try and meet somewhere in the middle. And to my surprise, they were not able to develop this application because they had no idea how to read and write computer programming language. To which I asked them, what are you learning in school? And they both laughed and said, our school doesn't even have internet, Mom. So that wasn't okay. I went home to visit. I'm native Canadian, although still living in Germany. And I went home for a summer holiday and immediately enrolled my children into a computer camp where I was told they would teach my kids how to read and write computer programming in just 1 week's time. So this being completely blind, of course, they did not learn how to read and write computer programming in 1 week's time. They didn't learn anything in 1 week's time. I learned something, that there are people out there who charge a lot of money for not much at the end of it. So that sort of got me frustrated because I'm completely passionate about all things educational. And I decided that I was going to do something about it because it wasn't right. And shortly thereafter, a friend of my son's, whose father is a computer programmer, we met, and I told him about my idea to use video games as a way, as a template to teach kids how to read and write computer programming language. And he thought the concept anyway was interesting, so he said, you know what, let me go home and give that a try. And very soon afterwards, he came back quite excited because his son, for the first time ever, actually took interest in what his dad was doing. And shortly thereafter that, we decided to start this company called Project Gnosis to teach kids how to read and write computer programming language. It would just be a simple after-school program, and that was really it. And so in that time, I was out with my then partner, he's no longer, looking for computers and places to rent, spaces to rent, so that we could actually start teaching this program. And that's when I met my partner today, Sammy, who was a young student at the time in a master's program. And I simply approached him because he was working at a secondhand computer shop where we were actually looking to buy computers to teach the kids. And I just, had a feeling. I took one look at him and I had a feeling that I need to approach this guy. And so I did. And I asked him if he knew how to code, and he said yes. And I'll leave it to Sammy to finish how that story went.
Yeah, and then I immediately started as a teacher at Michaela's place because it was located in the area where, in the near of Michaela, where she was living at that point. And yeah, so I totally get the idea, because when I started university here in Germany, there was a huge gap between the schooling system and the university knowledge level. I studied computer science and electronical engineering at the same time, and I had nothing in school. I didn't have any computer courses, how to turn on and turn off a computer, and I get really frustrated. So I only had one last try in computer science one. If I couldn't get that, then I would be kicked out of the university. And so I was really questioning myself, what is the problem, what are the issues? And yeah, I figured fast out that there's nothing, there's a big gap. And that's why I love the idea, and that's why I inspired also the idea what Miguela was planning together last time with the sooner colleague. And yeah, then I was thinking, why should everybody be so frustrated and really hard time to self-taught everything in the internet, go to YouTube and all the stuff? And this is absolutely not the best situation when you directly come from school to university and you have a really fast mode where you really have to produce and really yeah, have a high level what you reach. And that's why I'm still here and also see still big gaps. And that's why I'm here to teach, especially in um, my, let's say, call it department, computer science, and the whole tech stuff behind it.
Well, what's interesting, and I'll just add this too. So we're just doing this like we're actually talking to Ronan, which is a really actually it turns out to be an interesting way to answer these
Mm.
questions. So I would just like to add, as I have before, that what Sammy wasn't aware of at the time, and we discovered beautifully, first of all, was that he was a natural at teaching. And I think this was just based out of the idea that he was so frustrated to learn himself that when he finally sort of got it, he said it was more like a click. It was just all of a sudden he just understood. And when I presented to him the idea that why don't we use something that kids really love, which is gaming and playing, the best way to learn is through play,
Yeah.
he kind of related to that immediately. This was just a concept that I think he got. And so we originally brought Sammy on board, or Sammy came on board to actually to teach the kids. So this was where the blessing sort of came about without us understanding it. So as he was teaching, we started off with about 7 courses. And as he was teaching, he realized that even within those courses, as simple as we made them, there were major gaps happening where kids just didn't understand certain concepts. So we would meet after every single time he taught, and he would tell us and explain to us the things that we were missing. And sort of that's how we almost reverse engineered what's the best way to teach kids how to read and write computer programming language. What's interesting is that I think, I guess you would say, I'm the education side of the company and Sammy is the technical side of the company. So I bring the pedagogic approaches and the creative aspect to how kids, with my teaching background, how kids learn best. And together we actually ended up building, how many courses do we have, Sammy?
I think about it is 36 and
36. Okay, so we have
still
about,
in process.
and we're
A lot of
still in
them.
process. And that's just strictly the courses that, no, but how many actual coding courses are
Like
there? Because,
35. If you have different, if you say everything is one lesson, one lection, then you have different courses like almost 35.
oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Sorry. So that was just actually the pedantic steps that are necessary to teach kids how to actually become computer literate. When we talk about computer literacy, we're just talking about computer programming. When we talk about technical literacy, we're talking about the intelligent interfacing with all the different technologies and softwares that are out there, and actually giving sort of a background as to how technology got to where we are today. There's also tying in the lower primary program, we don't start teaching kids realistically how to actually read and write computer programming languages until they're about 13 years old, if not a little bit older. So under that, we're developing their analytical, we developed an entire set of courses to increase analytical thinking skills and to interface the kids with technology in a way that's more meaningful and relatable to like actual, beyond just using it to play games or to watch
But
movies or to be on social media.
but this is not only the learning outcomes. I think there are also a little bit more, for example, like problem solving. I think like how you approach a big project, how do you approach some kind of issues, you know? It is not really only specific for computer science or for computer literacy, let's put it this way. It's also more for their, for, let's call it maybe soft skills, how to approach, also
Life
develop their
skills,
life skills, I think.
almost like, well, this is the whole idea, is that eventually what we figured out is that this was so much more than just an after school
Yeah.
club, that this was like a huge issue that was going on all around the world. And so it sort of went from just being like, the simple after school club business type of thing to, wait a
Mhm.
minute, the whole world needs this. And so our philosophy was born on 4 cornerstones. The first one is education is a basic human right. It takes a village to raise a child. Give a child a fish, feed them for a day, teach them to fish, feed them for life. And the
With
last
great
one,
power.
with great power comes even greater responsibility. And that's wherein we started developing also the emotional intelligence curriculum to go side to side with the computer aspect of what we're doing, because there is actually branches of computer science and psychology, because of the way in which it actually changes how we approach socialization, even when you take a look at all the aspects behind social media. So the inspiration of Project Gnosis is still very much alive and kicking. Just COVID in itself transformed us, really, because the odd thing about our program was that we actually developed to train teachers and students together offline in schools, in classrooms. And then of course that made us quite unique, because most of the other programs, any of the tech programs that are being offered, are software applications or they're online programs. And the reason why we didn't go down that route was because, first of all, the data shows that less than, I think it's somewhere between 3 and 5% of all people, adults and kids alike, actually complete courses that are done just pre-recorded online. So we knew live, face-to-face in real time was just absolutely essential if we were really going to produce an outcome. And that was the whole basis, behind what we're doing. This was really about changing the face of education and sticking to our philosophy as a company. And, we just kind of came from the right place. I recognizing, because I grew up without the internet, this major divide that started to happen between me and my kids, and seeing it actually all over the world. And Sammy, who was sort of right in the middle of it, struggling, realizing I'm not receiving the education that I actually needed to go out and become the person that I want to be down the road. So if it weren't for the support of his parents to get him the private tutoring necessary to sort of get that coding aspect,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been able to do that. And so this is really just our way of telling the world this is the best way to get integrated with skill-based outcomes. And everything we do has been tested, live, using our next question.